there needs to be more, because what we found was that when the Export Promotion Council talked about the opportunities and how they're supporting exporters, some of the SMEs in the room were surprised. That means that more information needs to be put out there.
Yeah.
If these support systems exist, they exist for the exporters, and so there needs to be more engagement with those who need it. There needs to be more communication around it. There needs to be more meetings like what we had, more summits like what we had, to unpack the opportunities that exist, and then provide some form of hand-holding and coaching for the exporters. So there is a lot of export going on informally. And what it means is that the SMEs are not able to take full advantage of the opportunities. They are not able to take full advantage of the support that they could get. They are not able to take advantage of, understanding what are the standards, what are the requirements, what are the processes, where can you get help if you need help in this area. There were questions around, is anyone speaking for Nigeria for the quality standards, because sometimes there are challenges with the quality standards. But there are bodies that exist that have done some research, that have systems available that can support them to get the standards right. We just need to work together. What you find is that there's silos of intervention, and it all needs to come together. That was the outcome from this meeting. So yes, some level of awareness, but more, a lot more needs to happen for us to be able to take full advantage of the opportunities provided by trade and not all export in our economy.
Okay, there are some seminars, so to say, that are being held that we hear about here today. If we see the posters or the banners talking about, if you want to know about this business, come to this seminar. If you want to know about export, come to this seminar. Would you say that these are passing the correct information to their intended audiences? Do you think that those are the proper places to go for the information needed if you want to be involved in export?
It is good that there are seminars trying to provide information on what needs to be done, what systems are available for export. But I think that as business owners, we also need to take responsibility. There is the Export Promotion Council. It is there because it is there to promote export. The first place you should go to will be to a place like that, to their website, ask questions, engage with them. They have their portals, you can call and you can get more information. So I think that to a large extent we sit back and hope that information comes to us. And if I want to talk about my experience with some of these seminars that have been organized, they're not as attended as you would think for people who need information. You say, oh, you know what, I want to export, I want to take advantage of the opportunities. There's a seminar on this and you're not showing up for it, you're not even exploring. I personally, researching for the event, I was able to find some information, not enough, but at least it gives you a line, it gives you an opening, it gives you direction on where to go to get what you need, right? So I think that businesses also need to make a move. They need to make more effort. They need to try to find out more about what is going on around us and where the opportunities exist.
And that's where this summit comes in.
That's where the summit came in to help.
All right, so remind us about the focus of the summit. A few key points that should be discussed. Is there one that was really that people were really passionate about above any other? Talk to us about that.
Yes, there were quite a number of topics that people were very passionate about. I think that all the topics were interconnected. One, we spoke about, are there opportunities? The answer was yes. Are there policies guiding export? The answer was yes. Do we know about them? That's another conversation. We can find out more about them. Third, do we have the skills? Do we have the manpower? Do we have the support system in case I want to export to this country and I meet a barrier? Is there anyone who can help me take out this barrier? That was a point that was really heated in the discussions. Now there were some complaints around when we export our food items, especially agricultural items, to Europe or to the US, or want to export to other countries, there's this question of quality. And then there were also discussions around the fact that when these materials are taken to maybe Ghana or to Kenya and exported from there,
They're
it's the same
accepted.
product and
It's
they're
the same
accepted.
product.
So there is a problem about perception of the goods coming from here. There's also a problem about, really going through the process for us. And there's a problem about an alignment between our government or our SON and our NAFDAC with others across the world, so we know what those standards and what those policies are. Okay, if Nigerian goods can go from Ghana, what are they getting right and we're not getting right? Maybe it's those inspection systems, maybe it's those certification bodies who need to really work with us more closely to understand what needs to be done. There were also discussions around packaging, right? You might have a great product, but if the packaging is not right, there's also the question about the perception of Nigeria as a whole. And
we are constantly battling with that.
If we're constantly battling with our perception, with our image, then we need to work on our image and the perception of who we are and the perception of the quality of our goods. Some products get exported informally and they're accepted in those countries that they go to. Sometimes there are challenges, and that's the only time you know that, okay, they're taking these products out of Nigeria. That means that there is something good about our products. There are opportunities that exist for our products. We can build our reputation as a reliable trade partner, or that we're providing high quality products coming out of Nigeria. I think those are the areas that we need to discuss, but they're interconnected. So if you have the right skills to understand what you need to do with packaging, with marketing, with the quality standards, and you have the connection with the inspection agencies and with the certification agencies, and you also know that, okay, when you get to the port, this is where you can go to, this is where you can get your processes, and so you can go faster, because there's also the question of how long it takes for materials to move from one point to the other because of the challenges we have with infrastructure, including roads. So very, very interconnected. I think every point was addressed very passionately, and there were some recommendations that came out of there that we as NECA have committed to continuing the advocacy around, and we're going to continue the engagement and continue the discussions to ensure that those blockages, those road blocks, those challenges are removed, so that we can really begin to take advantage of the opportunities with export. Because I mean, look at where we are. Our forex system has been harmonized, and there is a lot of pressure on the naira right now because we're mostly importing. We need to export better to have a better balance. All right, we need a better balance within our economy, and the only way to address that is to increase the export that we have out of here. There were also discussions about export of services. Can you
export services?
Voila, you can export services. What stops an auditor who sits here from working across the world? What stops an accountant who sits here from working across the world? What stops a public relations agency that sits here from supporting companies across the world? We can begin to do that and end foreign exchange. I mean, we can look at the tech startups. That's where we're seeing more of that happening. We can export our services. We can create solutions that can be sold across the world. There was also discussion around our music. Our music is going all over the world. How did that happen? It didn't have much support from the government, but it happened. But we can build a structure around how we export this. There are economies that have built their economies around export. India, technology. And if you look at the ICT industry, the tech industry in the United States, you will see the impact of that deliberate attempt to build and to export the talent. So these are things that we can begin to work on, and we will continue those discussions to ensure that we are leveraging those opportunities.
All right, so we have to wrap up your own segment of the show, so we move on to the second topic. However, I would like to ask you this final question as a roundup, as a total, from all the things that have been said and discussed and agreed upon. What should business owners now expect from going forward from NECA? What are the things that NECA are promising to look into that businesses should even help NECA with to achieve some of the goals?
Okay, so I'll just do it by sharing the recommendations we have made, and we really recommended that government and policymakers should facilitate the ease of doing business in Nigeria, and we're going to keep advocating that is done. And we ask all business owners to join this advocacy to ensure that we have a better better environment for business. And we need to implement policies that not just encourage but actually incentivize exports. If we put an incentive behind exports, then we will begin to see that happen more. And so we're going to keep working on ensuring that we get this. And then we need to take advantage of the market access provided by the AFCTA and really ensure that we're building our ecosystem, building our infrastructure, building our business systems to take advantage of this opportunity. And also we need to really focus more on improving our agro processing industry. And so what are we going to be doing? We're going to continue advocacy in these areas. We're going to continue engagement in these areas. We're going to work with MAN, we're going to work with NEPC, we're going to work with all the stakeholders to ensure that all the discussions that we've had is put to paper and action is taken, so it's not just about talking.
Okay, so before you go, I have a message for you from Jude in Igondo. It says, good morning to your guests. I appreciate the derivables from exporting agricultural produce, but we forget the food crisis in Nigeria. If farmers concentrate on for export alone, won't local consumers suffer?
That's a very good question, because we're talking about the fact that Nigeria is not producing enough food already to feed itself, and then we're talking about export, so we're not producing enough for export. But we need to strike a balance. We need to ensure that we're producing more, and if we produce more, that means that the market has more. Because right now, what is going on is that people are exporting informally, and we're not producing more. And as long as we don't pay attention to increasing the productivity and incentivizing that increase in productivity, we're not going to see change happen. So we'll work on both areas and strike a good balance to ensure that while we work on export, which is what the focus of this discussion is, we're also working on improving food security within the country.
All right, thank you so much. And that is the first half of the show. Thank you so much to Victoria Wadoka. She's the Vice Chairman, Summit Planning Committee. The summit was held 2 weeks ago in Abuja. Thank you for giving us that update. We'll take a quick break and then the second. I told you it's a full package today, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
This is Radio 1, 103.5 FM.
081-333-13172. That's the number to call in, and you are listening to NECA Voice of Business on Radio 1, 103.5 FM. Now, as I said, we're moving to round 2 of our discussion this morning, and in the studio to help us with that, I have Mr. Muyiwa Adebayo. He's the Chairman, Committee of Finance Experts, and we are talking the federal government's ongoing tax reforms, implications for business survival. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you once again for the opportunity.
Now, we've talked tax quite a lot as it affects businesses in Nigeria. With the new administration has come in, can you highlight some? Okay, before we highlight the new, let's talk about the old tax reforms and how they're maybe not so good for businesses in Nigeria. Just a quick recap of that.
Okay, thank you very much. The last tax reform I could say we had was in 2017, but it's more of national tax policy document that was done, okay? And that document is to steer the ship towards reforming tax administration in Nigeria for efficiency, increased government revenue, and convenience. Okay, but and that also gave rise to the fact that the last administration started to annex the beauty of it by trying to introduce finance bills, okay, to address some of those germane issues. But unfortunately, not all of what is contained there in that national tax policy document were taken into consideration, most especially because the government then was fixated in increasing government revenue regardless of the impact it may have on the larger business and the individuals, which then means that because the zeal and the quest to generate more tax revenue overrides other consideration. And until now, that this current administration is now trying to look at it holistically. The beauty of now is that the current government is private sector centric, which means they understand that any economy can only be built by the organized and the informal sector. and therefore they are willing to more or less listen, get more advocacy, and get more collaboration done. And I think that is what brought about the announcement of the government to appoint the African tax leader for PwC, that's Taiwo Udele, to steer the ship of that committee. And we'll be waiting for what the committee will do and put on the table for us to see the next trajectory towards prosperity.
Okay, the average person would ask you now, because we all hear taxing is a key part of governance. Taxing if you're a business owner, you should pay taxes. But when we talk about the problem, the policies, and they will ask, in layman terms now, not in business owner, in layman terms, and for someone that who wants, as I always say, who wants to go into businesses and who is looking at the big business and wondering why the business is going out, why are these tax policies so detrimental?
Okay.
Or how are they so detrimental?
Okay, let's start from the genesis. Okay, I think if you go back to the ancient days, tax has always been an issue. Okay, if you could also permit me to go back to the Bible, you will see that in Matthew 22, you'll find out that that's chapter 22, verse 21. You'll find out issue of Caesar tax and the people. Even people accosted Jesus to talk about the tax collectors, and what came out of it is what belongs to Caesar.
Give to Caesar.
To Caesar. All because from time immemorial, tax has been by way of compulsion. It's not contractual. And the only thing that makes willingness possible is issue of seeing the social good being performed by the government.
And seeing the what I'm paying for.
Exactly. And how it impacts. And also seeing the economic prosperity. If you have more money, if you do business and government provide the enabling environment, government provide opportunity through international trade policy and the rest, nothing will stop you from paying taxes, because it is due to government involvement that you are generating these resources. But on the other hand, you find a situation whereby somebody is struggling. He struggles with developing business idea. He struggles with getting capital. Even most of the capital are loans. And from day one, he's trying to open a shop. And the first thing you see are the people from the council, people from the state government coming to collect one tax or the other, radio, license, road parking, and all sorts of things, which means you don't even allow people to prosper before taxing. And that's why we always tell people that you can't tax any economy to prosperity. And I always tell people with this philosophy that it's rather that you collect 1% of small thing than collecting 100% of nothing. And therefore, that is where the issue lies. Okay, in Nigeria, we need to understand that no matter how forceful you are in your tax administration, yes, in the earlier years you might be able to gather, collect it by force, do all what you need to do, but how sustainable it is. Rather, build the economy, provide the enabling environment, provide incentives and the like, and you see that once economy booms, once we start to take advantage, competitiveness across the globe, and we earn more, automatically government will earn more. Two, government will not need more money to do palliative and the rest if people are gainfully employed, if government provide the enabling environment and support small, medium enterprises anywhere in the world. It is not the big corporation that create employment. It is a small businesses. Until we do that, before we can get it right. And therefore, tax should be much more of instrument in rejuvenating economy. Tax should be much more of instrument in creating economic prosperity. Tax should be an instrument in much more redistribution of wealth before we can come to tax as a source of government revenue. And that's my position.
All right, if you have questions, it's 0813 331 3172. 0813 331 3172. You can call in or send us a message and then we will get back to you. We're still talking tax reform. So going forward now, you have said that the committee will be set up. What are the things that we should look forward to? What are the tax reforms that we want?
Okay, the committee has been set up, okay, and today, this morning, the African tax leader of PwC, to avoid conflicts of interest, has resigned in PwC, which means the committee is now in its full gear to start. Okay, and the government has more or less rolled out what should be the objective and what should be the action plans of the committee. But what we expect as organized private sector is that we need tax system that is specific. When I say specific, it means that it must be clearly thought out. It must be a tax policy that breeds productivity. Okay, rather than taxing productivity, let us tax consumption. Okay, it's when economy is productive, earning power is high, and therefore ability to tax and widen the tax net will be easier than you killing productivity at the expense of consumption. Therefore, other things we also need is we need harmonization of taxes. For example, at federal government level, the tax bracket is about 15 now. Okay, when you look at the tax across board. Okay, when you look at state, we have close to about 20, and when you look at local government, rolling about 30, 40. Altogether, it's over 60 taxes, and we are not even talking of other
60 taxes.
Yeah.
For one organization to pay.
Yeah, it varies. It varies. It much more affects some organizations than they.
Others,
but
okay.
the question then is, why do you need to have this multiplicity of taxes? First, by data, when you look at our tax revenues, about 95% of them is contributed by no more than 8. The question then is, why waste time on most of all these things? Why can't we centralize it that the taxes, probably at federal level, is consolidated into 1, maximum 2. State level into 1, maximum 2. Local government 1. And so that you can have efficiency in the administration, in the cost of collection, in the ease, and some other things. For every law in the last administration, in the last 4 years, it comes with one form of tax or the other, NASENI, NPF levy, NYC, this, and that. And the question then is, it doesn't make sense. Why can't we consolidate it as one? And at federation level, they distribute. Why must I be dealing with FRS on this stream of tax, this stream of tax, this stream of tax, this stream of tax? I deal with LRS, I deal with Ogun State, I deal with different aspect of government agency in tax revenue. It doesn't make it good. You now find out that in most companies you deal with more of regulators on a day-to-day basis rather than dealing with customers, rather than dealing with operations. Therefore, it creates inefficiencies across board, and therefore we need to look at that. Also, government also need to understand that we need to shift taxes away from production to consumption, and where that speaks to is that in the advanced world and most developing world, fast developing countries, you'll find out that bulk of tax revenues are from consumption, which is VAT and personal income tax. But reverse is the case in this part of the world until recently, when VAT has only contributed far better. Personal income tax is next to none. All because, one, you have killed production, and therefore people cannot earn, and therefore you cannot collect as much as possible. And likewise VAT. Therefore, shift away from taxing corporates, like you see in most companies, countries. Corporate tax is more or less very low. Why you focus on value-added tax, you focus on personal income tax, and all sorts of things. And again, when you look at value-added tax, nothing stops us from graduating it. Anything that is going to impact the common man probably might be VAT exempt or zero rated, which means you don't VAT it.
Okay.
Like basic foods, transportation, and some other things. Any other thing that is next in level, probably you VAT it at 5% or 7.5%, and by the time you get to luxury goods, you VAT it as much as 20%. And at that time, you are not taxing the poor. And again, you are taxing consumption. You are not taxing production. Which means, if you say people that goes to high place restaurants, a poor man will not go to restaurant to eat. Therefore, you charge higher VAT. A poor man will not buy luxury car. You charge higher stuff. But when it comes to transportation, cars and everything, probably VAT is zero. And you do that. And in that case, you are taxing luxury lifestyle, which is a form of wealth tax, but now I'm calling it luxury tax.
Which is not compulsory.
Which is not compulsory.
You don't need it to survive.
And also personal income tax, you can graduate it. First, government has said people earning minimum wage 30,000 are tax exempt in principle. Yeah. Let's say minimum wage is raised to 50,000, for example. It means if you earn 600,000 in a year, it's zero tax. Therefore, you can graduate it if you earn between 601 and 2 million. Probably you tax it at 5%. Now, by the time you get to people earning 10, 20, 50 million, you graduate it to as much as what it is, which then means that in that case, you are taxing at disposable level.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes. My name is Samuel calling. I'm calling from Sulu.
Okay, thank you so much for calling. Can we have your...
Yes,
Yeah.
please, I want to get in the studio to look into this for some of us. I worked in a federal institution. Before I joined about 10 years ago, I worked for a private organization. At the end of 3 years, they will bring my counselor to me at my table that, so that this is the counselor that come. I will just find that I've selected it. Now, for the past 10 years, I've worked in a federal institution here in Lagos. They are deducting my tax, and my deducting tax from my salary. And for the past 10 years, sir, I have not been given counselor. I went to the Lagos State at Alaka to complain. They said they are not getting tax that they are deducting from this federal institution to them. So they can't give me tax there. So I'm in a fix, and many of us are in a fix. Why can't they reconcile themselves? The federal government collecting tax from the workers and the Lagos State that the tax is due to. Why can't they come together as governmental bodies and help the ordinary citizens? When I go to the Lagos State to do something, they ask for my tax bearer. And I've done the giving.
All right, thank
you. Help us to look into situations like this.
Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Thank you so much, Abner, for calling. We want to respond to what he said.
Okay, unfortunately, government institutions, the institutions that are supposed to regulate and also steer the ship, but unfortunately, you find that most of them don't do the needful, and it will be surprising. It has been a thing of, it has been revolving that most government agencies don't remit taxes the way they're supposed to, most especially withholding taxes and some other things. And this also extends to issues like pension and the others that you hear PENCOM complaining about government defaulting. But all because there's no responsibility, who to hold and penalty, will you charge penalty on government, who will pay it, and all sorts of things like that. And therefore, those are the conundrum in it. But again, I believe the kind of what I would advise is people to speak up, probably to the right quarters. And I believe the current administration, after this reform, will bring everything to one-stop shop. Because part of the recommendation is how do you even separate revenue generating agencies from regulators? Let us separate those saddled with regulation from revenue. And that's number one. And in that case, issues like custom can be a directorate. Even FRS can be a directorate under the Nigerian Revenue Service, as the case may be, and so that you can focus on revenue and let regulators focus on regulation and all sorts of things like that. And also, we have joint tax board where the state and federal government, more or less, tax administrators have commonality. And I think it's now for us to probably make joint tax board more of overriding tax regulator than just advisory. You understand? And I think more of that synchronization is necessary to reduce multiplicity of taxes, to ease tax burden, administration, and the likes. All of those things are what we expect at this point in time.
All right, we would round off the show at this point, but before we go, I think I'll come back to Victoria first of all to just wrap up again what we should look forward to when it comes to non-oil exports, and your final words, just to remind people of what exactly NECA is all about when it's we're talking non-oil exports stuff.
Okay, thank you again. So what are we going to look forward to? We're going to look forward to every hand on deck, all stakeholders working together to ensure that we're promoting non-oil exports. And it's not just about agricultural products. There are services, there are finished products, there are things that we can begin to look at as opportunities to export. And what is NECA about? NECA, of course, is the voice of business, and we know that no economy grows without the businesses growing. And so you can trust that we will keep working together with you, we'll keep speaking up, and we'll keep driving advocacy to ensure that we have a better business environment. Thank you.
All right, and then final was Mr. Muhammad Adebayo.
Okay, I'll probably encourage everyone to play their role, okay? And once we play our role, we'll be able to hold government responsible. The OPS, which is led by NECA, should also play its role very well, advocacy, collaboration with government, and also government need to be sincere in its fiscal policy to promote economic prosperity, so that at the end of the day, it will be better for us all, make us more competitive. Not just within Nigeria, but today the world is flat. We are in a global environment. Therefore, we need to be competitive to earn foreign receipts. And most especially, we also advise government to address the issue of cost of governance, because it is critical. That will encourage people to willingly pay their taxes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And that's NECA Voice of Business from Radio 103.5 FM. We'll be back same time next week for another edition of the show. My name is Olaomi Akon. Thank you also to Paul Oninode, who's an engineer for today. See you next week.
Join us next time on NECA Voice of Business, same time on this station. You can also follow us on all our social media handles. Facebook